The next array helper that we're going to be covering is the filter helper. Now, filter is probably the toughest one that we're going to cover so far, but it's another one of those fantastically useful helpers. Let's start by looking at an example. Another common UI feature that you're going to see on websites just all the darn time is the ability to filter out or sort some products. So you could be thinking of, like, say, Amazon, Newegg, anything like that. Anytime we want to do any type of filtering of a list. So let's imagine for a second here that we're going to make an array of products, and we're going to imagine that we have a list of shopping items in a grocery store. So each item will be represented by an object, and they will be they will have properties of a name, and so I'll say this one is a cucumber, and its type, which is a vegetable. And perhaps we've got several such products going on. So I've now got 4 different products. I'm going to change out a couple of these properties here. So we'll have a banana, maybe a, well, not a, but just celery, period, an orange, and then we'll update the types as well. So a banana is a fruit and an orange is a fruit as well. So we have an array of objects. Each object represents a single product and has a name and a type. So what is a classic use case here? Exactly what I just said. Maybe these are products that are listed on a product page of sorts. Maybe we're at Instacart.com or Amazon, whatever it might be. And maybe our users click some little checkbox and they say, only show me fruit. Out of all the products we have, I only want to see fruit. So we'll start this off with a for loop implementation. We're going to do it the very classic way with a for loop, and then we're going to use this new filter helper that I mentioned. So basically, I want to get all the objects in here, so my banana and my orange, where the type is fruit. So let's write this code. First, I'll start off with an array, so filtered products, and then we have to write our for loop. So for var I equals 0, I less than products.length, I plus plus. I'm gonna give myself just a little bit more space here. There we go. So for each element in the array, I want to see if its type is equal to fruit, and if it is, I'm going to add it to this filtered product selection. So if products at I.type is fruit, then filtered products.push products at I. And now I can log filter products. Oops, there we go. And I've got my banana and my orange here as well. So here's a fantastic case, by the way, with this for loop implementation of why we do not want to mutate an existing array. So imagine if we used this for loop right here and we said, out of all the different products I have, just remove the products that are not fruits. So if I just dumped vegetable, both these records right here, I only kept around the fruits. So in other words, if I mutated my existing products array, if I was doing that, all of a sudden on my client-side application, I am just arbitrarily dumping data application. And we never, just so rarely ever want to just kind of arbitrarily dump data or kind of delete data, excuse me. Instead, what we usually want to do is we want to produce a subset of all the records that we have. And that's why I created a new array here, because I don't want to dump the existing vegetables. I don't want to remove them from the array. I just want to produce a subset of all the different products I have, and I want that subset to only have fruits. And so again, fantastic example of why we choose to use or produce new arrays out of all these different helpers as opposed to modifying or mutating an existing array. Besides that, our for loop here suffers from all the different problems that we've discussed before. We've got all the same boilerplate for the bounds of the loop. And then once we're inside the loop, if another engineer ever walks on the scene here and is trying to figure out what has to go on, they have to spend kind of a non-zero amount of time. They have to look at the if statement, look at the interior of the if statement to figure out what's going on here. And so again, for the 3rd time in a row, I'm going to make the case that perhaps using for loops for everything in our code base isn't the best approach for when we're trying to build a kind of a long-term product. Okay, so let's do a little bit of refactoring. We're going to give me some new lines here just so everything's kind of level on the screen. I want to use a new filter helper to produce the same list of products right here. So again, the name of the helper is filter. Not too bad, right? So let me pull up our diagram here. Something that's going to help us figure out what's going on with filter. And here we go. So in practice, it's going to look very similar to how map looked before. So this diagram itself kind of looks somewhat similar, right? Here's how it works. We take an element out of our source array, which is going to be our products array, and we pass it into our iterator function. That iterator function has to return either a truthy or a falsy value. If it returns a truthy value, it will be included in a result array, so the array that gets returned from the filter helper. If the iterator function returns a falsy value, however, this new value will not be included in the new array. And so filter works exactly as we want it here. If we pass in a fruit, we just have to return true out of the iterator, and that fruit will be included in the new array. But if we get a vegetable, we need to return false, and then it will not be included in the new array. So let's give this a shot using the filter helper. I'm going to just in one line, we're going to do the entire thing. So I'm going to take my list of products, and this time we're going to call filter on it. And we'll pass a function in, like so. As usual, the first argument to this inner function, the iterator, is the element that we're currently iterating over. And so we're going to follow that same rule before, where if we have products plural inside of the function, we are referring to a singular product. So we're going to use the singular just product as opposed to products, plural. So now once we're inside of here, we can just say return product.type equals fruit, like so. And boom, you can see on the right hand side, we've got just our banana and our orange. And I can just as easily, vegetable, and there's our cucumber and celery. So very straightforward for making the change there. Two things I want to point out here, well actually three. Just to be clear, for the product that we're receiving, we are comparing the type to this hard-coded string and saying, hey, is this thing a vegetable? If it is, then great, I want to keep it around. So this Boolean statement right here is going to produce a truthy or falsy value, really just true or false, and then we're immediately returning that. So the point number one that I want to make here is, again, just like with the map statement, do not forget to put in your return statement in here, okay? So don't do that. If you don't put in the return statement, you're going to end up with an empty array because you're going to return undefined every single time from the iterator function. So don't forget the return statement. Second off, and this is another important one right here, be careful with doing anything like if product.type is vegetable, return true. And I'm going to remove the other line there. So be careful with doing any logic like this. And the sole reason I mention that is you've got an if statement here. I see this all the time. It happens, I do it myself. You've got an if statement here, and you're using that if statement to produce a Boolean value, either true or false. So if this expression right here returns true, then great, let's enter the if statement and we can return true. But why in the world? We're just kind of making up an extra step there to say, oh, I want to specifically enter the if statement. This expression right here, the product.type equals vegetable, that produces a truthy or falsy value. So we might as well, instead of using the if statement, just return the product of that comparison. So just to say product.type is fruit, like so. No need to use an if statement to kind of produce a truthy or falsy value. Okay? Cool, so that's filter in a nutshell. Let's look at a more complicated example in the next section.